This month marks the beginning of the 2014 elections in India. In the world's most populous democracy, millions will decide on a new government. On May 16th, we will know the outcome. 2014 is being vetted as a landmark election. Indeed, a change in power seems likely. Economic growth has slowed. The popularity of the current governing party, the Congress, is in steep decline. People are tired of what they see as a corrupt and backward system. India is a parliamentary democracy. When voters go to the polls this month, they will vote for a party, not a leader. Nevertheless, certain key figures have emerged.
Foremost in the opposition is Narendra Modi of the BJP. Modi, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, has led his state to great economic success. Many want to see this model applied nationwide. However, the Gujarat story is not all positive. In 2002, the state was devastated by violence in Hindu-Muslim riots. Charges were brought that Modi's government had sponsored the riots. Despite this, Modi is more popular than ever. His appeal lies in his charisma. Modi's strength also lies in the weakness of his opponents. It is likely that the Congress candidate will be Rahul Gandhi, the great-grandson of Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister. Many question his qualifications, saying he is only the candidate because he was born into the role.
But thinking of the election as a two-horse race is a mistake. In a country as vast as India, it is often the regional parties which decide the balance of power. India has 6 national parties and over 50 regional ones. With millions still to vote, the results are anyone's guess. Join me as I talk to Harvard's professors and students who have been following these elections.
This will be the single biggest election that has ever taken place, the single biggest democratic process that has ever taken place in terms of sheer magnitude. We have upwards of 800 million registered voters, which is a very, very big number. That is bigger than the size of the entire European Union, entire population of the European Union, and 2 times the size of the American population. There is a high likelihood of there being a change in the government. There's going to be a change in mentality, a more pro-growth mentality. What growth does is it helps remove people out of poverty. You know, oh, China's done this. Why can't we do that as well? Why can't we help uplift upwards of so many million people in our country and bring them out of this poverty trap? And that's why this election does matter to people inside and outside India.
To India, I think it's very important because this is the first time that something can actually change completely. It looks like the majority is in favor of Modi now. And I think that could mean that India, you know, it's always like almost bursting or almost like one of the most like important countries in terms of like trade and everything. But I think if he was Prime Minister, he could really make it happen.
Richard de Lacy, Professor of Hindi, acknowledges the economic significance of the elections, but raises doubts about how much real change we could see.
It's hard to know. I think it has the potential to be a moment of change, but it's hard to know because, you know, politics in India is so convoluted, and political parties are made up of alliances always, or governments are always made up of alliances. So it's hard to know. People do say that economically it's a critical time for India, particularly because there was so much hope about development and growth, economic growth and things like that. And there's a growing concern that that's stalled to some degree. Also, you know, politics is complex, or you know, they're complex in India, and I think that getting anything done requires a lot of political muscle as well, and so that's why it could go either way. I think it could be decisive, but it could also not lead to much change at all.
Freshman Dhruva Bhatt is equally skeptical.
Us Indians believing that we're going to have one person come in and clean up the system for us. We just keep having this kind of superhero mentality where we expect Modi to come in, clean up institutionalized corruption, be the one man who's going to fix everything. And I just don't think it's possible for him to do all of that as quickly and as like on as thorough a scale as he claims that he can.
Hasit Shah, a visiting BBC journalist at the university, explains the complexity of the Indian political system. Neither these elections nor the governance of India is straightforward.
coalition aspect is really important in India because India is not a country of two parties. It's a country where there are two big national parties, but in order to govern India, you have to do a deal with many of the smaller, and actually not very small at all, but the regional parties which effectively run 5 of the 6 biggest states.
One such regional party is the Aam Aadmi Party, which came to power in Delhi last year. The victory represented a powerful desire for change in the nation's capital.
What they do demonstrate is the fact that there's a distinct antipathy in India towards the established political parties and the established political system. People are really, really sick and tired of and angry with things like corruption, things like inefficient public services. Aam Aadmi came along and seemed to promise, some kind of change. Now, they haven't really delivered, but it doesn't mean that the appetite for that change is going to go away.
The issue of corruption is a more difficult issue, and you see that with what's his name, Aam Aadmi Party leader Kejriwal, and that yes, of course, there's a sentiment there, but and his brief sort of chief ministership of Delhi and things like that was something that indicated that people do want change and they do want more transparency.
While the new government may be a coalition, it seems quite clear that the dominant party forming it will be the BJP. So who really is Modi? Why this Modi madness?
There's a number of factors that contribute to his popularity. One of them is the fact that he's runs a state which, on the face of it, has done better than most of the rest of India. His supporters argue that he has healed the wounds of 2002, the riots. He's made Gujarat a cohesive, productive place once again, and that the old tensions don't exist to the same level. He also appeals to people who want a strong personality in charge of India. The current Prime Minister is a very well-respected economist, but even his greatest supporters could not argue that he is a magnetic presence, that he bestrides the world stage, that he can go around India and instantly command fear and respect. Modi has that, according to his supporters.
On the flip side of Modi's popularity is discontent with the current governing party, the Congress.
I think the Congress has not done a good job in the past 4 years with all these scams and foreign policy decisions, and Rahul Gandhi, I think, is a terrible choice for as a Prime Minister candidate. He has no credentials. I think this is for me personally, this is choosing between a rock and a hard place.
I've noticed a couple of interesting trends as an Indian watching this. The first thing is just Indians have this mentality of anti-incumbency every time they vote. And after 10 years with the government, they're tired of the government, they want to vote them out. The second thing is just an odious lack of meaningful political discourse in India. The Congress and Rahul Gandhi giving an interview where he mentions about 4 things over and over again. Women's empowerment, the supposed anti-Muslim beliefs of Modi, and 4 stock answers that he repeats as the answer to every single question, insulting the intelligence of the Indian voter.
No one has any confidence in him. He's not sure himself if he wants power. His attendance at all the Lok Sabha, the parliament has been really questionable. And so if I had there is an option to abstain, and if I could vote, if I was in India, I would.
Professor De Lacy examines Rahul Gandhi's unpopularity.
It seems evident that he does want the job and wants to be Prime Minister and wants to lead the party. Whether he's qualified, I think that's the issue that people are grappling with in a way. That and yes, the fact that he comes out of the Gandhi Nehru family means that it's almost as if it's his birthright, and so people are they've had enough of issues like that. But it really comes down to his qualifications to be Prime Minister, and I think that's the issue to a certain degree, that whether he's really the most qualified person for the job.
In the past, the BJP has been linked to Hindu nationalism. prior to the Gujarat riots was an incident in the historic city of Ayodhya in 1992. Hindu fundamentalists tore down the Babri Mosque. Their claim, the mosque was built on the birthplace of the Hindu god Ram. Ceremonies included a chariot ride into Ayodhya led by the high-profile BJP member L.K. Advani. The incident suggests a Hindu nationalist agenda, but how central is this to the party's ethos?
It's very interesting. One of the biggest ideologies of the BJP is Hindutva. Hindutva is if you actually even go on their website and read what Hindutva is all about. Hindutva is actually the belief in Hindustan. Hindustan in Hindi means India. So Modi's opposition, what they like to do is they like to manipulate the idea of BJP's belief in Hindutva as BJP being a Hindu focus or Hindu centrist party. You're trying to connect this idea of him going towards the Ayodhya, the temple there, you know, Ram's birthplace in a chariot, and you're trying to say that, okay, this is symbolic of the BJP's ideology. Could it be? Perhaps. Yes, it could be. Is that something that I support? No.
I would have no issues with Modi coming to power because I think from what I've seen in the news, he's proved himself to be a good administrator and someone who's clearly capable for the job. And he's also kind of shed this image of being anti-Muslim, pro-Hindu nationalist agenda. So I'm not worried about him being like this Hindu fundamentalist leader. I'm worried more about the more extremist sections of the BJP, such as the RSS, being emboldened by the rule of someone who clearly is linked to them in power and being able to do what they want.
However, for sophomore Soumya Karki, these concerns cannot be set aside.
I do not think that Narendra Modi should become Prime Minister. I mean, yes, he's charismatic, and that's why so many people support him. He's also been wonderful economically for Gujarat's growth, but I think there are certain checkpoints. Narendra Modi, in the same line, he has been involved with the Godhra killings. He's not been held guilty, but there has been like a lot of talk, and he didn't necessarily do anything to like take action or control it. So I think if there is even slight doubt that this guy, like, I don't think he has done enough to make the minorities in India feel secure. I think that is very important. India is a very secular country, and if the minorities don't have faith in the leaders' attitude towards them, then I think that's going to be a problem.
Whatever his potential prime ministership might be like, and certainly however that might play in terms of minority politics, it is representative of a more right-wing Hindu movement than traditionally the Congress Party has been, and it is important for India because it's so important that India is able to embrace multiculturalism and diversity, and always has, and almost certainly always will continue to do so. But how India does that with relation to a party like the BJP is important, and it's important for hundreds of millions of people.
So what does this mean for us here at Harvard? Will you be watching on May 16th? I leave you with freshman Dhruva Bhatt. Thanks for watching.
At a place like Harvard, people are incredibly politically aware, and they definitely care about what's going on in other countries around the world. My roommates are 3 physics concentrators who don't. But the people who do have a stake in the system are following the elections very, very closely. And I think at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. But for my part, when I'm jumping around, like just glued to the television screens on election results day, my friends are probably going to look at me and wonder what's going on. And at that point, I'll tell them all about what a beautiful democracy India is, and about how it's magical to see a country which is so divided, which no one predicted would remain a democracy, be a democracy for more than 60 years. And I think that's fantastic.